right, so I'm a little bit late. I actually went for a swim. But anyway, it's nice that I'm actually late because that way we actually have some news for us to actually cover. So let's cover some news today. All right, so first up, we got to talk about Microsoft cutting earnings and revenue forecasts. The tech giant cut sales and earnings guidance for the current quarter, citing the impact of foreign exchange rates. So Microsoft cut the sales and earnings guidance for the current quarter. Sounds familiar? Sounds familiar? Okay, this is what we got from Snapchat as well. Okay, but of course, Snapchat got a bigger sort of concern in the market. So that was a lot worse than what Microsoft is actually saying over here, because what Microsoft is basically worried about, okay, is the impact of foreign exchange rates as the stronger US dollar takes a toll. Okay, so they're just talking in their filings saying that they expect the fiscal fourth quarter sales to be between $51.94 billion and $52.74 billion, down from its prior guidance of $52.4 billion to $53.2 billion. Okay, so it's not really that big of a drop. It was about $1 billion for a drop. But similarly, of course, if you're actually taking numerical value on its own, Snapchat is basically a few $1 million down only. But for Microsoft, $1 billion down. If we actually take it based on percentage point, this is barely 2% downwards. So it's actually all right for them to actually take this so-called drop in the earnings guidance. So of course, this is definitely going to be affecting Microsoft to a certain extent. But I don't think that we need to be that worried about Microsoft at all. All right, next up, we got OPEC and a Russia-led group agree to increase oil production. This is huge, okay? This is super duper huge, okay? Especially with what happened with the EU, okay? The EU embargo, okay? And if you have not watched the video yet, okay, it's on my main channel. It's basically saying, it says say no to Russian oil, the EU embargo, the European Union embargo, okay? The OPEC, so basically right now they're saying that the OPEC Plus agreed to a bigger than expected oil production increase of 648,000 barrels a day in July and August. Okay, this is huge. This means that you're looking at about close to a billion, close to half a billion of barrels of oil per month. So that's definitely going to be very good for the whole entire world, because this way oil prices might actually come down. You know what? Actually, let me check oil prices at the moment. Let me just head over to Market Watch to see if there's any drop in oil prices. Okay, apparently not. Never mind. I forget about it. It's $116. Apparently, the news kind of spiked up the price of oil prices actually. So let's see over here. The delegates say allowing Saudi Arabia to potentially pump more crude and paving the way for a potential deal with the US. The move represents a shift for the Saudis, who lead the OPEC and have resisted calls from the US, UK, and other Western countries to pump more oil to help reduce a price boom resulting from Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This decision comes after a flurry of diplomacy between Washington and Riyadh, with senior US officials traveling to Saudi Arabia in recent weeks to broker a deal and a potential visit to the kingdom by Biden. Officials familiar with the discussions there say 648,000 barrels per day in July and in August. So have been dedicated to a series of monthly output increase of about 400,000 barrels a day. So yeah, they're upgrading it by almost like 60%. That has done nothing to stop oil prices from surging above $100 per barrel since February 24th invasion. The OPEC Plus decision come days after European Union agreed to impose a partial ban on the Russian oil purchase, which is the embargo news that I actually covered, adding to Western sanctions that have helped push Russian crude production down by 700,000 barrels a day in the past 2 months. Cool. Russia, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Russia is one of the world's 3 largest oil producers, along with Saudi Arabia and the US. Before the invasion, it pumped 11.3 million barrels a day, about 11% of global supply. So clearly you can tell how detrimental not having Russia is, okay? Russia pumped 11.3 million barrels a day. Right now, they're trying to get 648,000 barrels a day. and this is like as much as they can do as it is. So yeah, pretty insane, all right, let's move on to the next news. US and Taiwan to deepen their trade ties. Planned June Washington meetings. Of course, the US and Taiwan unveiled a fresh blueprint to deepen their trade relationship, focusing on ending forced labor and harmful non-market policies and practices as Washington and Beijing vie for sway in the region. The plan, known as the US-Taiwan Initiative on 21st Century Trade, aims to develop an ambitious roadmap for negotiation for reaching agreements with high standard commitments on areas such as trade facilitation, regulatory practice, agriculture, anti-corruption, supporting small businesses, the Office of the US Trade Representative said in a statement. So yeah, pretty cool. I do think that this might actually bring up some concern with China, and I do think that China actually did have some opinion on this. I think I will most likely be covering that later on as well. So yeah, it's good to see that US is trying to kind of side with Taiwan a little bit, but I do think that this kind of trying to jab at China. I don't think US really care that much about Taiwan's trades as much. But we'll see. All right, supply snacks threaten EV revolution. The Toyota sign is set. Car makers with rising material costs are hiking EV prices. Toyota sticks with hybrid bet as battery supply chains mature. So yeah, I do think that to a certain extent, what Toyota is doing is very, very safe. Okay, I do think that yes, EV is definitely going to be going through some rough patch in the future. But by rough patch, I do mean rising costs. But the thing is that where there is rising costs, a lot of time the manufacturer basically just push the cost over to the consumer, which is kind of what have always been happening. I do think that if we actually take Tesla for example, if we go through Tesla's earning, you can really see the margins excluding taxes. Excluding those margins, okay, those are very, very important for you to really look at, because if you look at those margins right now, we are at, I think, at 30%, 32%. Okay, if we suddenly see it kind of drop down towards like 28% or 27%, then yes, it's true. That means that Tesla is trying to absorb the cost and trying to earn a little bit less money. Okay, and that would definitely be a concern if this continues to be a trend. But if that were to not be the case, then I do think that, of course, if Tesla don't have this issue and all the other EV companies have those issues, then it's very, very evident that Tesla is doing something right, where the rest of the companies are not doing as well. Okay, but of course, I do think that what Toyota scientist is saying is possibly true to a certain extent. I do see rising material costs hiking EV prices in the long run. All right, let's see if there's any breaking news. It's hard to see the case for the Fed pausing rate hikes. Ooh. Okay, looks like we have a new news later on. Okay, let me just go over to CNBC to open this up. Okay, cool. All right. Anyway, let's move on to the next one first. Putin thinks his biggest ally in Ukraine is time. Risk rise for both Ukraine and Russia from arms to economics. Military balance may shift again for Kiev in months ahead. So yeah, I think this is just basically an opinion piece, so I'm just gonna skip this. All right, jury sides with Johnny Depp in a liberal case, awards him with $10 million. Personally, I did not really follow with this whole trial super duper closely, but I do follow on like different like platforms such as like TikTok, Instagram, and such. So yeah, I'm pretty happy to see Johnny Depp win this, as is for a lot of other people. He is going to be walking away with $8.35 million, if I'm not mistaken, because he won $10 million from the lawsuit. Amber Heard won $2 million from the lawsuit, and that kind of basically just offset it to be $8 million. And then afterwards, there was another $5 million over to Johnny Depp, but I think they have some punitive law majiggy that actually lowers it down to $350,000. So Amber Heard in total owes Johnny Depp $8.35 million, according to what I actually read in the morning. So, all right. Anyway, China wants US ban on Xinjiang's good to severely disrupt ties. Okay. let's see. Okay, China warns the US that a law banning imports from Xinjiang, unless companies prove they are free of forced labor, would severely damage ties, escalating a dispute between the nations over human rights. If the act is implemented, it will severely disrupt normal cooperation between China and US and the global industrial and corporate production chains. Okay, Zhao urged the US to not implement the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act and otherwise trying to hobble China's development. He added that if the US insists on doing so, China will take robust measures to uphold its own rights and interests as well as its dignity. Okay. This is tough. Okay. Set up showdown between the world's two largest economies because the law is set to take effect on June 21st. The Biden administration has signaled it's prepared to take a tough stance enforcing the ban, with Custom and Border Protection official warning companies on Wednesday the bar for clearing imports will be very high. If there's a part or a piece of an input that is coming from Xinjiang's region and that shipment will be considering containing forced labor and it will not be allowed into the country. Okay, under the act, the US assumes that anything made even partially in the western region of Xinjiang is produced with forced labor and can't be imported unless companies can provide clear and compelling evidence otherwise. The law passed by Congress in December steps up US efforts to combat China's alleged repression of Uyghurs and other minorities in Xinjiang. Beijing has repeatedly denied accusation that China is forcing minorities to work against their will. Okay, so honestly, a pretty tough political piece. I do think that is true to a certain extent. I think that will definitely be a concern, and I don't think that US is doing this because of whatever they're saying. I don't think it's because of the Forced Labor Act or whatsoever. I do think that they're just kicking China when they're down. Okay, they want to increase the gap between China and US. This is the best time to do so. Any political leader should definitely be doing it right now, especially for US from where they are standing right now. My own personal take. All right, next news. China automaker joined government with incentives to boost sales. COVID-19 lockdown have put the brakes on consumer spending. Car companies offering to subsidize purchase taxes among moves. Okay, this is going to be huge. Okay, China automakers join government with incentives to boost sales. This is one of the reasons why I bought in quite heavily into NIO yesterday. I talked about it in yesterday's news. I said that, I am very, very interested in Chinese company now. Okay, and one of the huge reasons why I'm interested into Chinese companies now is because China is in recession. And we all know you want to buy into recession. Okay, when US was into recession, I did not really have as much liquidity. And of course, I have a lot of assets that is stuck into various different companies or in different assets such as cryptocurrency and whatnot. Okay, so now I actually have a lot more liquidity. That's why I actually bought into NIO, and also I bought into Alibaba. I finally bought into Alibaba. Okay, but honestly speaking, I want to tell you first that I do think that NIO might be a longer hold than Alibaba. I think I might get out of Alibaba very, very quickly because I'm not that bullish on Alibaba in the long run. I do see a huge flaw in the e-commerce space in the long run. Because as clearly as we saw it in Amazon, okay, and we see in C, okay, C Group, which is the one that actually operate Shopee in Singapore and Southeast Asia. Okay, so you can see the clear flaws for e-commerce as a whole. So I do think that Alibaba is definitely going to be seeing a lot more troubles up ahead. So I think Alibaba will be a short play, and a short play like in a short period of time for me to actually hold on to Alibaba. But for NIO is definitely going to be a very, very interesting piece for me to look at. So yeah. All right. Now, for the breaking news that actually came in, let's read this together, okay? Federal Vice Chair Lael Brainard says it's hard to see the case for the Fed opposing rate hikes, okay? So over here on Thursday, he said that it's unlikely the central bank will be taking a break from its current rate hiking cycle anytime soon, though she stressed that the Fed policymakers will remain data dependent. Brainard said the most likely path will be that the increase will continue until inflation is tamed. Right now, it's very hard to see the cause for a pause, Sarah Eisen during a live squawk on the street. We still got a lot of work to do to get inflation down to our 2% target. So yeah, okay. CNBC just saying that Dow Jones is down for another 200 points because of Microsoft. All right, so let's kind of wrap up what Lael Brainard actually said. So she's basically telling us that there will not be a FOMC meeting where they are not going to be raising rates. That's not going to be the case anymore. Okay, we're going to see a minimal 25 basis point increment or a 50 basis point increment. It can go even higher to a 75 or even 100 basis point increment. But as of now, we're seeing 25 or 50. Okay, and this is going to continue. Okay, because even if we expect a pause to be coming, it's still going to be a 25 basis point increment. Okay, this can be considered as good news or bad news. It really depends on the person looking at it. I think it's relatively good news because this means that inflation is going to get settled. One way or another, we are getting inflation down by 2023. By the end of 2023, inflation is going to go down back to 2%. That's my own expectation. But anyway, pretty good. Pretty lovely news. I don't think I have much to actually talk about the stocks market other than that. Right now, the market is doing relatively well, surprisingly. Okay. Okay, never mind. The SPY kind of just dropped a little bit. So SPY is down 0.3%. The QQQ is down 0.02%. Okay, barely down. Okay. And the rest of them, tech stock, growth stock, surprisingly doing quite well. So yeah. Anyway, that's all I have for today's news. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.